In this lesson, you will learn how to process an automatic payment run in SAP. This is transaction code F110. This is quite a complex transaction that can perform multiple functions, so we're going to take you through step by step. In this first step, we're going to create the payment run and the proposal, and then actually do the payment as a separate lesson. So the scenario here is we want to create a payment run to automatically pay multiple vendors and multiple invoices at the same time, as opposed to the one-by-one manual method that we saw before. But remember, this is a basic overview. In your company, the payment method and the details will differ according to the country you're in, the method of payment. Is it an electronic payment? Is it a check payment? Is it a bank transfer? And also the integration and security with your bank. So this will be very specific for your organization. So we will cover the basics. So the master data, we will create a run date, which is really a creation date for the payment run. It's not really a posting date. It's just a date to identify the payment run. We'll come up with an identification code, also for identification purposes only. We will use company code 3000, and the payment method we will demonstrate here is payment method A for ACH, which in the US is a domestic electronic bank transfer. And we're going to pick these two vendors. There's a lot of test data in the system that is really old, so by only using these two vendors, it'll make it clearer to illustrate how the payment run works. So let's jump into the SAP transaction. So this transaction is under accounting, financial accounting, accounts payable, but rather than under the document entry or document sections, it's really going to be under periodic processing. And under periodic processing, here you'll find the F110 payment transaction. This does not have to be done at the end of the period, but can be done weekly or as frequently as required. So the run date here is for us to identify when we created the payment run, in this case the 2nd of February, and the identification here is any key or code that will help you find the payment run later. The tabs run from left to right, and the first one you need to fill out is the parameter screen. So here we have the posting date. This is the date in which we're actually going to post the payment, and we'll make it the 5th of February. And documents entered up to, I'm going to make this the 2nd of Feb now, and then explain to you, why I did that and how we can change that. Company code is 3000. Payment methods here, I'm just going to select one payment method. I'm going to select the bank transfer for the US ACH, but you do have check payments and other payments, and you can use more than one payment method in a specific payment run, but in this case we're just going to do one and only one company code. The next payment date, this is when are you going to do the next payment run. In this case I'm just going to put it out to the 28th of March just for test purposes. Here you can enter vendor information. Normally you would have a vendor range, for instance vendor 1 through 999, to just do a whole range of vendors. Or you can even do customers if you owe them money. But for this payment run demonstration, we're just going to select two vendors, and I'm going to use the multi-select here to select two vendors to make it easier to understand. And we'll pick two vendors where we know we've got some open items. So once you've entered this parameter screen, then you will then go to the next tab. So the pre-selection tab is if you need to do a more fine-tuned selection of vendors, which we're not going to use. We don't really need it for this demonstration. The additional log tab, this is to give us a maximum information on how the due date is checked, what happens if a payment method is not successful, i.e. it fails, and show us the line items for the documents. And for the log, include all vendors. So this is really to give us additional information if there's an error in the payment run. The printout data medium tab. So this we're not going to cover in a lot of detail, but what this function does here, there are a couple of programs over here. One of them typically generates the payment advices or statements. The other one could be generating the electronic payment file for the bank, i.e. the ACH file. But these programs and the variants set up here are highly specific to your country, your payment method, and your integration to your bank. But just so you understand in the background, if I go to maintain the variant here, you'll see that for this company code, for this variant, the payment method is specified, and here we control, are we generating iDocs, are we printing payment advices, what printer would the checks be going to as an example, or where would the statements be going to which printer. So all of this detail is very tightly controlled, but is highly specific to your company, so we will not cover this section in detail. You will need to do a technical analysis when you speak to your payable department. So now that we've done the tabs, if we click on the status tab, we'll be asked to save. And our green is good, our parameters have now been entered. So once the parameters are entered, The next step is then to actually create the proposal. Proposal must happen before the payment run, so let's do the proposal. And what happens when you select proposal, the system says when do you want to start the proposal. You can schedule a batch job or you can start immediately. For us, we'll start immediately. Create payment medium, we won't select this here. This is if you wanted to test create the statements or the electronic documents. So if we click enter, this job now gets scheduled and the proposal is currently running. This refresh icon here, you can click that until it says payments have been processed. For us, it's been pretty quick. We only had 2 vendors. So now if you display the proposal, you can see what has the system found. So here are our 2 vendors, and the system has identified $6,000 worth of payments for the one vendor and nothing for the top vendor Mobile Inc. So in order to analyze that, we can double click on this line and see for vendor Mobile Inc. what is it found. It's found 2 open items, but they both contra each other out here, $2,500 debit and credit, and that's why there's nothing to be paid. And also one of them, they're both actually blocked as well, which we'll have a look at. For this guy here, 3511, there's $6,000 to be paid. If we double click on that line, we'll see the system has found 3 different invoices that it's going to match up to pay that $6,000 to this vendor. So it's easy to see what's going to be paid and what invoices make up the payment. So let's just click back to the list and look at that in more detail for you to understand how that selection happens. So I'm going to open up another SAP session and just run line item reports using FBL1N, our favorite line item transaction, so you can see how the line items are being selected. So if we go to Accounts Payable and look at the account line items, let's have a look to see how the logic is working. So let's pick vendor 3021, look at the open items, and let's see what's in that screen. So here you'll see we've got a lot of different items, but the system so far has only selected the bottom 2. And they contra each other out, and you can see they're both blocked for payment with this R value. That's why they came up red, and they also came out with a 0 payment because they contra each other out, and you can see this was a cancellation. These top items did not come into the transaction at all. They were not selected for payment, and that's because their posting dates didn't fit in with our selection criteria. So we'll fix that later. Let's back out of that. Let's look at the other vendor and see what came up in that selection. So here you can see the 3 top items which are due for payment. You can see the due date symbol is red. They came up for payment, whereas the bottom 2 items did not. So the top 3, which added up to 6,000, you'll see those 3 invoices there. They were the top 3 in the line item report. So you can see there's a straight match there if I just jump back and forth. And let's say for the top item here, just to remind you, we only saw these 2 items there, which was not really what we wanted to see. So if we just select that again, I just want to cover this one again. You'll see we did have these 2 that were set up for the contra, and we can see they matched in the contra there. But we were missing a bunch of items in there. So what I want to do now is I want to just, before doing the payment run, I want to delete this proposal because this is what you can do, and I want to select all the items that were due for payment because we're missing those ones at the top, and I don't want to miss those because they're due for payment. So let's make sure we get those into the payment run. So in order to do this, we can go edit proposal, delete, because you can do the proposal multiple times, and then let's go into the parameter screen here, and you'll see the documents entered up to, I only had the 2nd of Feb here. So if I make this now a future date, the 5th of February, and then reprocess the proposal, then I should get all of that information that was then missing that wasn't getting paid. So let's save that. Let's run the proposal again, start immediately and execute, and let's see what happens. Proposal is running. Let's refresh. Proposal has now been created. Let's display the proposal, and voila. Here you can see for vendor 3021 there's some money to be paid now. The 2,500 contras are still there on the top line that were blocked, but here we've got this 10,000 value for Mobile Inc. that wasn't there before, and you'll see we've got a bunch of invoices here. But if I look at the open items, these ones that were overdue that were missing, if I jump back and forth, you'll see they are actually now in the payment run. They're not being left out anymore. So that's why I've now got that 10,000 to be paid. So that's really great that we can see that. So now this proposal log button, this gives you a very detailed view of how that proposal was made up. The system will show you each invoice that's being evaluated and show you the system logic that's being applied. How much money has it found? Is it due for payment or not? Is there any cash discount applied, etc. And this is very useful for error triage and to see the logic the system is applying. So that one was okay. Also due for payment. So you'll go through the individual documents, you'll see, and here are the ones that were blocked. You'll see payment block key R. So that's why that came up with red for that one vendor, and there's the second line item that came up red also for the 2,500. That's why those two were not selected for any payment. And then at the end of that vendor, the system shows you what journal it is going to post. Remember, this is a proposal, nothing has been posted yet, but this gives you maximum visibility as to what the system is going to do when you finally commit to the payment run. And then that's all done for that vendor. Now we jump into the very next vendor in the range. And again, the system will take us through all of the individual documents and the logic the system has been applying. Once you get through all of the invoices for a particular vendor, you again get a summary of the journal that SAP is going to post. Note, this journal hasn't posted yet, but you can get good transparency and audit exactly what is going to happen before you actually commit. And then you can just jump back from that and get back to the parameter entry screen. So the main thing to remember here is that the proposal can be done multiple times and can be deleted and reran. And just hopefully I didn't create any confusion there. The reason why I did the proposal, deleted and reran it is I wanted to show you how we had some vendor items that were open and overdue but they were missing. By deleting the payment run and updating the parameter date, we could then redo the proposal and then now suck in those items so that they weren't missing. So that's creating your first proposal. Let's do a quick review of the dates. So key dates to remember: the run date is a label only for identification. It's not a posting date at all. The posting date is over here lower down in the screen, and this is the accounting date used for the actual payment posting. Documents entered up to, this is the date that selects the open items. This is the date which we first ran with the 2nd of February, so we were missing some items. When we deleted the proposal, I then updated this to the 5th, reran the proposal, and then it sucked in those overdue items. Then the next payment date. This date is very useful in the system where it tells SAP when is the next time you plan to do a payment run. If any open items are not due today, but they will be overdue by this next payment date, then they will be brought forward into this payment run to avoid a late payment. So that's everything on payment proposal. We'll hit the payment run itself in the next lesson.